There's a window of time every single morning that almost nobody uses, and the people who discover it never go back to sleeping through it again. Somewhere between 3 and 5 in the morning, while most of the world is still lost in dreams, a small group of people are already awake, already moving, already building the life everyone else only talks about. If you have ever laid in bed at 4 in the morning, wide awake, wondering why you couldn't fall back asleep, staring at the ceiling, feeling like you were wasting time, I need you to hear this. You weren't wasting time. You were sitting on top of the most valuable hours of the entire day, and nobody ever told you what to do with them. This is not about punishing yourself. This is not about becoming some extreme, no sleep, grind until you collapse kind of person. This is about something much simpler and much more powerful. It's about understanding why the earliest hours of the morning carry a kind of quiet that cannot be bought, cannot be scheduled later, and cannot be recreated at any other point in your day. Jim Rohn spent decades studying the difference between people who built extraordinary lives and people who stayed stuck exactly where they started. And one of the patterns he kept coming back to again and again was this. The people who took control of their mornings ended up taking control of everything else. Think about your own life right now. Think about how your days actually begin. For most people, the day starts the moment a phone lights up. A notification, a message. Somebody else's emergency becomes your first thought before you've even had a sip of water. Somebody else's opinion, somebody else's demand, somebody else's noise, it gets first access to your mind every single morning before you've had the chance to decide what you actually want your day to be about. And by the time you sit up in bed, your attention has already been spent. You haven't even stood up yet, and it's already gone. Here's the part that stings a little, but it needs to be said. This isn't happening because you're lazy. It isn't happening because you lack discipline. It's happening because nobody ever showed you a different way to begin. You were never taught that the first hour of your day is the most valuable hour you own, more valuable than any hour that comes after it, because it's the one hour that sets the tone, the mindset, and the direction for every hour that follows. Lose that hour, and you spend the rest of the day trying to catch up. Own that hour, and the rest of the day tends to follow your lead instead of the other way around. This isn't about age. It isn't about how much energy you think you have left or whether your body feels the way it used to. This works whether you're 30 or whether you're 70. In fact, some of the people who benefit most from reclaiming their mornings are the ones who've lived long enough to know exactly how fast the years move once you stop paying attention to them. If your knees ache a little more than they used to, if your sleep isn't quite what it was, if you find yourself more tired by mid-afternoon than you'd like to admit, this window of quiet, early time can become one of the gentlest, most restorative parts of your entire routine, not a punishing one. If any part of what I just described sounds familiar, the phone before your feet even hit the floor, the day that feels like it's already running away from you before it's begun, I want you to write it in the comments below. Tell me what your mornings actually look like right now. Honestly, no judgment at all. I read every single comment, and I promise you, you are far from alone in this. Because here's the truth. What I'm about to walk you through isn't just a routine. It's not a checklist you follow once and forget. It's a complete shift in how you relate to the first hour of your day. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why some of the most disciplined, successful, and at peace people you've ever heard of protected this early window like it was sacred. Stay with me, because the third practice I'm going to share is the one that changes everything else on this list, and almost nobody talks about it. Let's start with the problem, because you can't fix something you haven't clearly named. The problem isn't that you're waking up too late or too early. The problem is that most people wake up reactive instead of intentional. There's a difference, and it's bigger than it sounds. A reactive morning means the very first decision of your day is made by something outside of you. An alarm you resent, a phone screen you can't resist, a habit you fell into years ago without ever choosing it on purpose. An intentional morning means the first decision of the day belongs to you and only you. Picture two people waking up at the exact same time. One of them opens their eyes and immediately reaches for their phone. Within 90 seconds, their mind is filled with headlines, messages, other people's photographs, other people's opinions, and a low hum of urgency that wasn't there a minute ago. The other person opens their eyes and before touching anything, takes one slow breath. They notice the quiet. They let their mind wake up gently instead of getting ambushed. By the time both people are out of bed, one of them has already handed their morning away, and the other one is still holding on to theirs. Same hour, same day, completely different starting point. This matters more as we get older, not less. When you were younger, maybe you could absorb a chaotic morning and still power through the day on raw energy alone. But energy becomes a more precious resource with time, and the body has a way of letting you know when you're spending it carelessly. A calm, unhurried morning isn't just pleasant, it's protective. It's a way of telling your nervous system, before the day even asks anything of you, that you are safe, you are in control, and you are not starting from a place of panic. Here's something that might surprise you. The value of this early quiet time has almost nothing to do with what time your alarm goes off. You do not need to set your clock for 3 a.m. to capture this feeling. What matters is that you create a buffer, a stretch of unhurried, undistracted time before the demands of the world reach you. For some people, that's 45 minutes. For others, it's closer to 2 hours. The exact number matters far less than the principle underneath it. Protect a piece of your morning before anyone else gets a claim on it. And this is where most people get it wrong, including plenty of people who genuinely want to change. They try to overhaul their entire life overnight. They set an alarm 2 hours earlier than usual. They buy a fancy journal. They promise themselves this is the week everything changes. And by day 3, they're exhausted, resentful, and back to their old pattern, feeling worse than before because now it feels like one more thing they failed at. That's not a discipline problem. That's a strategy problem. You don't build a lasting morning routine through force. You build it the same way you'd build anything meant to last, gradually, deliberately, one small brick at a time. There is one more piece to this puzzle, and it's the part that quietly determines whether any of this actually works for you long term. It has almost nothing to do with what happens after you wake up, and almost everything to do with what happens the night before. Most people never even think to look there. But that single overlooked detail is exactly where we're headed next. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it in your own life. So let's go there now, the night before. If your mornings feel chaotic, there's a strong chance the real cause isn't your morning at all. It's the night that came before it. Think about how most evenings actually unfold. The television stays on longer than planned. The phone comes out just to check one thing, and somehow 40 minutes disappear. Bedtime keeps sliding later, a little more each night, until getting up early the next day feels less like a choice and more like a punishment. Here's a gentler way to think about it. Your morning routine doesn't begin when your eyes open. It begins the moment you decide, the evening before, what kind of day you want tomorrow to be. Before you turn off the light, take just a few quiet minutes to decide 3 simple things. What time you'll actually get up, what you'll do with the first few minutes after waking, before anything else pulls at your attention, and what one meaningful thing you want to accomplish before the day gets noisy. That's it. 3 small decisions made the night before, while your mind is calm and not yet negotiating with a warm, comfortable bed. When you skip this step, mornings turn into an argument with yourself. The alarm goes off, and immediately a voice inside you starts bargaining. 5 more minutes. I'll start tomorrow. I'm too tired today. That inner negotiation is exhausting, and it happens because you're trying to make a decision in the exact moment you're least equipped to make good decisions, half asleep, comfortable, and low on willpower. But when the decision was already made the night before, there's nothing left to negotiate. You simply follow through on a promise you already made to yourself. Once you're up, the first few minutes matter far more than people realize. Before reaching for a phone, before checking a single message, give your body a chance to actually wake up. A glass of water, opening a curtain to let in natural light, a few minutes of gentle movement, nothing intense, just enough to remind your body that the day has started. If joint stiffness or a slow start is something you deal with, even 2 or 3 minutes of easy stretching can make a noticeable difference in how the rest of your morning feels. This isn't about performance. It's about signaling to your whole system, we are awake now, and we are doing this on our own terms. And here's the part that quietly changes everything else. Keep your phone out of reach during this window. Not off necessarily, just out of arm's reach, somewhere you'd have to stand up and walk to get it. That small bit of friction is enough to protect your attention during the only part of the day when it's still entirely your own. Once you give your attention away, even for 5 minutes, it's remarkably hard to get it back. Guard it the way you'd guard anything valuable, because it is. If what you've heard so far has already given you something you can actually use today, do something simple for me, like this video. And if you know someone, a friend, a sibling, someone in your family who could use a calmer, more intentional start to their day, send this to them. Sometimes the people who need to hear something most are the ones who'd never go looking for it themselves. Now we get to the part most people never find, because it isn't about waking up earlier at all. It's about what you do with your mind once you're up. And this is where Jim Rohn's teaching becomes less about time management and more about identity. Rohn used to say that success isn't some giant, dramatic leap. It comes from something far quieter and far more repeatable. As he put it, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Not one perfect morning, not one burst of motivation. A few small things, repeated day after day, until they stop feeling like effort and start feeling like who you are. Here's the twist that reframes everything we've talked about so far. This entire conversation was never really about waking up early. It was never really about the clock at all. It's about ownership. Every morning presents you with the same fundamental choice. Whether you notice it or not, either you decide how the day begins, or the day decides for you. Rohn had a simple, blunt way of putting this too. Either you run the day, or the day runs you. Read that again, because it's not just a clever phrase. It's a description of exactly what's happening in your life every single morning, whether you've been paying attention to it or not. So after your body wakes up, the water, the light, the movement, give your mind the same courtesy. Sit somewhere quiet for just a few minutes. No phone, no television, no noise. Ask yourself one honest question. What is the one thing I could do today that would actually matter? Not the 20 small tasks competing for your attention. Just the one thing that, if you did nothing else, would still make the day worthwhile. Most people never ask themselves this question, which is exactly why most days blur together into a long list of busy but forgettable hours. Write it down if that helps you. Some people keep a small notebook by their bed for exactly this purpose. A few lines about what they're grateful for, a reminder of what they're working toward, and that one honest answer to the question of what matters most today. This takes less than 5 minutes, and it is one of the most quietly powerful habits a person can build at any age. It doesn't require youth. It doesn't require energy you don't have. It requires nothing but a few minutes of honesty with yourself before the world starts asking things of you. Then comes focused effort on that one thing, even just 20 or 30 minutes, before anything else competes for your attention. It doesn't need to be complicated. It could be time spent on a project that matters to you, a skill you've always wanted to build, a piece of writing, a plan you've been meaning to put on paper, or simply quiet, undistracted thinking about a decision you've been avoiding. The specific task matters far less than the fact that you gave it. There's one more layer to this, and it's the layer that turns a good morning practice into something that genuinely reshapes how you move through life, not just in the morning, but in every hour that follows. It has to do with the story you tell yourself about who you are. Every time you follow through on something you told yourself you'd do, even something as small as getting up when you said you would, or giving 20 focused minutes to something that matters, you're not just completing a task. You're casting a small vote for the kind of person you believe yourself to be. This is easy to underestimate because each individual moment feels so small. Drinking a glass of water instead of reaching for your phone doesn't feel like it means anything in the moment. But repeated across weeks and months, these tiny moments accumulate into something much larger than the sum of their parts. You start to notice a shift, not in your circumstances necessarily, but in how you carry yourself. You start to think of yourself as someone who follows through, rather than someone who means well but rarely finishes. And that shift in identity is worth more than any single productive morning could ever be. I want to be honest with you about something, because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve a perfect, polished promise. There will be mornings where this falls apart. You'll oversleep. Life will interrupt your plans. Some mornings you simply won't have it in you, and that's not a failure. That's being human. The goal was never flawless consistency. Nobody achieves that, and anyone who tells you otherwise is not being straight with you. The actual goal is simpler and far more forgiving. When a morning goes sideways, you don't let one missed morning turn into a missed week, and a missed week turn into an abandoned habit altogether. You simply begin again the next day, without guilt, without drama, without treating it as evidence that you can't do this. There's also something important to say about extremes, because this entire idea can easily be misunderstood. Waking up at 3 in the morning is not, on its own, a badge of honor. If it leaves you depleted, foggy, and running on empty by the afternoon, you haven't built a powerful routine. You've simply traded one problem for another. The purpose of reclaiming your mornings was never to prove how tough you are. It was to give yourself a quiet head start on a day that would otherwise run away without you. Choose a wake time that lets you get real, adequate rest and still leaves you a stretch of unhurried time before the world wakes up around you. That balance is not weakness. It's wisdom. And wisdom tends to matter far more than willpower over the long run. What I'm about to say next is the piece almost nobody puts into words clearly, even though it's the quiet engine behind every single thing we've discussed so far. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your mornings the same way again. Here it is. Your morning is not where your success lives. It's where your identity gets built, one repeated choice at a time, largely unseen by anyone but you. Nobody applauds you for drinking a glass of water before checking your phone. Nobody claps when you spend 5 quiet minutes deciding what actually matters today instead of scrolling through what matters to everyone else. This work happens in complete privacy, and that's precisely what makes it real. You're not doing it for recognition. You're doing it because you've decided, quietly and firmly, that you're the kind of person who owns their mornings instead of surrendering them. Jim Rohn spent a lifetime teaching that the distance between where you are and where you want to be is rarely closed through one dramatic transformation. It's closed through disciplines so small they barely feel significant in the moment, practiced consistently for long enough that they eventually become impossible to separate from who you are. The bridge between where you stand today and the goals you're reaching for isn't built from motivation. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Not motivation, which comes and goes with your mood. Discipline, which shows up whether you feel like it or not. So here's what I want you to actually do with everything we've covered, starting tomorrow. Don't try to change your entire life overnight. Don't set an alarm for some extreme hour and expect a miracle by Thursday. Choose one small piece of this. Maybe it's simply deciding tonight what time you'll get up and what the very first thing you'll do will be. Maybe it's keeping your phone in another room for the first 20 minutes of your day. Maybe it's just 5 quiet minutes with a notebook, asking yourself what actually matters today. Pick one, just one. Do it tomorrow, then do it again the day after that. You will not feel transformed after a single morning. That's not how any of this works, and it never has been. But you will have taken the first quiet step toward becoming someone who runs their day instead of someone their day runs over. And when you look back, not next week, but months from now, you'll realize that the version of yourself sitting here right now, at the start of this, was closer to real change than they ever gave themselves credit for. Your mornings are not the whole of your life, but they are, quite honestly, where so much of it gets decided. Quietly, privately, one small choice at a time, long before anyone else is even awake to notice. You don't need permission to begin. You don't need the perfect circumstances, and you certainly don't need to wait for Monday. You simply need to decide, tonight, what tomorrow morning is going to look like, and then follow through, one honest morning at a time. If this gave you something worth carrying into tomorrow, do one more thing for me. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. There is so much more of this kind of wisdom worth exploring together, and I'd genuinely love to have you here for it. Until next time, protect your morning.